over 1 million Bitcoin, frozen on purpose, forever. And that idea didn't come from a hacker or a government. It came from Bitcoin's own developers. Once you understand why, you'll never look at this market the same way again, because a storm is heading for every blockchain on Earth. And in 2026, it stopped being science fiction. Its name is quantum computing. This year, Google's own quantum researchers put real numbers on it, and the thing crypto laughed off for a decade suddenly turned into a countdown. Here's the uncomfortable part. Roughly a third of all the Bitcoin in existence sits in wallets a powerful enough quantum computer could one day crack wide open, including coins that have been asleep for 15 years, maybe even Satoshis. So Bitcoin is now staring down an impossible choice: freeze those coins to protect them, or leave them exposed to attack. Either road, somebody loses something, and the community is at war over it. Now here's what almost nobody is telling you. While Bitcoin fights that war, XRP already had a plan, a published deadline, and a built-in escape hatch that lets it upgrade without freezing a single coin. So today, we do the honest comparison. Not tribal, not XRP good, Bitcoin bad. Just the facts, side by side. And by the end, you'll see exactly why the people quietly rebuilding the financial system keep coming back to ledgers designed like XRP's. Let's get into it. Quick note before we start. This is not financial advice, and I'm not here to bash Bitcoin. I hold real respect for what it is and what it started. This is an honest comparison, facts only. Any scenario I mention is an opinion, not a promise. So protect your family, do your own research, and don't let anyone rush you, including me. So let's start with the threat itself, because if you get this part wrong, nothing else makes sense. For years, quantum computing was the boogeyman crypto people waved off. Someday, not our problem. We'll fix it later. And honestly, that was a fair take for a while. But something shifted in 2026, and it's worth understanding. Google's own quantum research team came out and basically said the timeline is shorter than people assumed. They estimated that a powerful enough quantum machine could eventually break the kind of cryptography that protects most crypto wallets today. Not tomorrow, not next year, but sooner than the comfortable someday everyone was banking on. Some serious estimates now put a real threat window somewhere in the early 2030s. Now, here's the concept you actually need, and I'll keep it simple. Most blockchains, Bitcoin included, protect your coins with something called elliptic curve cryptography. Think of it like a lock that is basically impossible to pick with today's computers. A quantum computer is a fundamentally different kind of machine, and in theory, it could pick that lock by working backward from information that's already public on the blockchain. And that's the part that catches people off guard. On most networks, the moment you spend from an address, you reveal a piece of cryptographic information to the entire world, forever. So the exposure isn't some far-off maybe. For a huge chunk of coins, that door is already cracked open, just waiting for a machine powerful enough to walk through it. So this isn't hype. This is real, documented, and the biggest names in tech are actively working on it. The question was never whether crypto has to deal with quantum. It's how gracefully each network can. And that's where Bitcoin and XRP go down two very, very different roads. So let me show you Bitcoin's road first, because it leads to a decision so uncomfortable that Bitcoiners are genuinely at war over it right now. All right, let me be fair here, because this matters. Bitcoin is not defenseless. That's a myth, and I'm not going to sell it to you. Bitcoin's developers can absolutely add new quantum-resistant technology. In fact, there's already a proposal for exactly that, a new type of address built to survive quantum attacks. So when someone tells you Bitcoin simply can't be protected, that's not true. Here's the real problem. It's not the technology, it's the coins that are already out there. Remember how I said spending from an address exposes it? Well, as of 2026, Roughly a third of all Bitcoin sits in that exposed category. And a big slice of that belongs to wallets that haven't moved in years. Some of them, we're pretty sure, are lost forever. The most famous being the roughly 1 million coins widely believed to be Satoshi's, the anonymous creator who has never touched them. So think about the trap this creates. To make Bitcoin safe, those vulnerable coins need to move to new protected addresses. But how do you move coins from a wallet whose owner is gone, or dead, or simply never coming back? You can't. They can't move themselves. Which leaves Bitcoin with two brutal options. Option 1, leave those coins where they are, and one day a quantum computer cracks them, and suddenly millions of quote-unquote lost Bitcoin flood the market, stolen by whoever built the machine first. Or option 2, the network steps in and freezes those coins permanently so nobody can ever touch them again. And that second option is exactly what some of Bitcoin's own developers have now formally proposed. A plan that would phase out the old vulnerable addresses and freeze whatever doesn't migrate in time, including potentially Satoshi's coins. Now sit with how heavy that is. Bitcoin's entire identity is your keys, your coins. Nobody can freeze your money. That's the whole promise. And now to survive quantum, some are arguing they may have to break that promise for millions of coins. Other developers are furious, calling it confiscation. It is a genuine civil war of values, and there's no clean answer. So did you notice something? This isn't a technology failure. It's a design corner Bitcoin got backed into. And it raises the obvious question. Did any network see this coming and build differently? Because one did. Let me show you. So here's where the XRP Ledger does something that honestly looks almost unfair by comparison. The XRP Ledger has a native feature called key rotation, and in plain English it means this. You can change the cryptographic keys that protect your account without moving your funds, without abandoning your address, without any of it. Your account stays exactly where it is. You just swap the old lock for a new, stronger one. Do you see why that's such a big deal here? The entire nightmare Bitcoin is facing, the frozen coins, the lost wallets, the civil war, so much of it comes from the fact that Bitcoin's fix requires moving coins. XRP's design doesn't. It was built years ago so that upgrading your security doesn't mean uprooting your money. And Ripple isn't leaving it there. In April of 2026, they published an actual roadmap, a public 4-phase plan to make the XRP Ledger fully quantum resistant by 2028. That's a real deadline in writing. And it goes further. They built what they call a Q-Day contingency, an emergency plan that kicks in if quantum computers somehow arrive ahead of schedule, automatically routing holders to quantum-safe accounts. They're even working with an outside quantum research firm to test it. And here's a number that really drives it home. An audit of the ledger found that only about 0.03% of all XRP is sitting in that exposed, vulnerable state. Compare that to Bitcoin's roughly 1/3. That is not a small difference. That is a canyon. Quick pause, and I want you honest with me in the comments. Did you even know quantum computing was a threat your crypto had to survive? Just type yes or no. I'm genuinely curious how many of you had this on your radar, because I think it's one of the most underrated stories in this entire market. Now I want to stay fair, because that's the deal on this channel. A 2028 plan is still a plan. It has to be executed. Nothing here is finished. And anyone acting like XRP has already won the quantum race is getting ahead of the facts. But the difference in starting position is just undeniable. One network is scrambling to fix a painful corner. The other designed its way around that corner years ago. So step back with me for a second, because this quantum story is really just one example of a much bigger pattern. And that pattern is the entire reason I'm still paying attention to XRP down here. Let's zoom out. So let's zoom all the way out, because quantum is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Here's a question almost nobody stops to ask. When all of this crypto technology actually gets adopted at scale, who's it really for? Because for a long time, a big part of the crypto world was built on one idea: tear the old system down. No banks, no governments, burn it all and start over. And look, I get the appeal of that dream. It's romantic, but watch what's actually happening in the real world. Earlier this year, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, put out a major report on tokenization. That's the process of putting real financial assets, like bonds and funds, directly onto digital ledgers. And they didn't call it a fad, they called it a structural shift in the architecture of finance itself. But here's the part that matters most. The IMF said the most important transformation is happening inside the regulated financial system. The banks, the asset managers, the big institutions, not around them, not replacing them, inside them. They even expect banks to survive and evolve, not disappear. Now I want to be careful and precise here, because I always will be. The IMF did not endorse XRP. They didn't name any single coin. So don't let anyone tell you the IMF is shilling XRP, because that's just not true. But connect the dots yourself. If the future of this technology is the regulated financial system upgrading its plumbing, then the winners are the networks built to plug into that world. Built for compliance, built for institutions, built to help the system, not burn it down. And whatever you think of Ripple, that has very clearly been their entire bet from day one, while a lot of crypto was busy chasing the opposite dream. Now, one honest correction, because I've heard this one repeated a lot. Some folks say Ripple is the only crypto company with money transmitter licenses. That's just not accurate. Others, like Circle and Coinbase, are heavily licensed too. What's fair to say is that Ripple is among the most regulated and licensed players in the entire space, especially for cross-border payments. That's the honest version, and it still supports the point. This is a company that chose the hard, slow, regulated road on purpose. So here's where it all comes together for you, as someone holding XRP right now, while the price is quiet and the mood is grim. Let me tie the whole thing off. So let's bring it home. What does all of this actually mean for you, holding XRP down here near its lowest levels in a year? First, the honest part, because I owe you that every single time. None of this is showing up in the price today. XRP is beaten down, sentiment is rough, and on the prediction markets, more people are currently betting it stays under $1 than betting it climbs. That's the reality right now, and I'm not going to paper over it. But here's the reframe, and I mean this one deeply. Everything we talked about today, the quantum roadmap, the structural design advantage, the institutions leaning into tokenization, none of it is happening at the top of a hype cycle. It's happening right now, in the quiet, while almost nobody's clapping. The engineering doesn't care what the chart did this week. The 2028 plan doesn't move because of a red candle. The building just continues. Now, does any of that guarantee the price goes up? No. Let me say it as plainly as I can, one more time. There are no guarantees here. Quantum is still years out. Plans can slip. Competition is real. Other serious networks are working on this too. And nobody, me included, knows the timing or the outcome. Anyone who acts 100% certain is just guessing with a confident face. So what do you actually do with all this? Honestly, nothing dramatic. You don't panic because the mood is dark, and you don't bet the house because one video got you fired up. You never ever risk money your family depends on. Please, protect your household first, do your own research, and take your time, because if this thesis is right, it is not going to be won or lost on any single day. What I really want you to walk away with is perspective. The next time a crowd tells you every coin is basically the same, or that XRP is a relic of the past, you'll know better. Because while everyone argued, one network was quietly engineering for a future most people can't even see yet. And that to me is a very different story than the one the price is telling right now. This has been Crypto with BHW. We're early, the foundation is being poured, and I'll see you in the very next one.